Tell me about the coin MoneyGod1 MGO. Overview of MoneyGod1 MGO. MoneyGod1 MGO is a decentralized cryptocurrency token that positions itself as more than just a financial asset. It's described as a crypto-face project. The core mission of MGO is to blend spirituality, decentralization, purpose and philosophy, spiritual and social mission. MGO aims to unite people under the concept of one God, one blockchain, one purpose. It promotes global volunteerism, supporting activities such as disaster relief, mentoring, elder care, and other social impact initiatives. Community-driven tokenomics and technology. Decentralization. MGO operates as a decentralized token with a significant focus on transparency and community governance. Blockchain. This token is available on the Solana blockchain with the contract address provided for transparency. Supply. There are reports total of 1 billion MGO. Though the supply figures may vary across the platforms. Per day, volume is approximately close to 30,000 euros. Active community. The project maintains active communities on platforms such as Telegram, X, Reddit, and Medium. Investment considerations. Volatility. Like most cryptocurrencies, MGO is highly volatile and may not be suitable for all investors. Prospective buyers are advised to conduct thorough research and consider their risk tolerance. Market listings. MGO is primarily available on DEX but also on SEX. Feature and details. Purpose. Crypto phase, global volunteerism, social impact, blockchain, Solana, token type, decentralized, non-federal. Total supply 1 billion. Price. Trading volume 30-40,000 euros per day. Telegram, X, Tweet, Reddit, Medium, disaster relief, mentoring, LDK, social service, volunteerism. Conclusion. MoneyGod1 MGO is a unique crypto project that merges spiritual values with blockchain technology to foster global volunteerism and social impact. It operates as a decentralized token. Related. How MoneyGod1 blends spirituality with blockchain technology. MoneyGod1 MGO explicitly positions itself as crypto-face, a project that fuses spiritual values, particularly those rooted in concepts of God's unity and service, with the technical and philosophical foundations of blockchain. Decentralization as divine harmony. MGO leverages blockchain's decentralized nature to mirror spiritual ideals to unity and interconnectedness. Each node on the blockchain is likened to an individual with a global spiritual community contributing to a harmonious collective purpose. Transparency and trust. Blockchain and transparent immutable ledger is seen as a digital parallel to spiritual values of honesty and accountability. Every transaction on MGO blockchain is permanently recorded in the spiritual principle that all transactions are visible to higher power and should be conducted with integrity. Smart contracts and digital covenants. MGO utilizes smart contract self-executing agreements coded into the blockchain. Immutability as an enduring testament. The unchangeable nature of blockchain data is compared to the steadfastness of spiritual covenants and divine promises. Just as faith traditions emphasize the unbreakable nature of sacred commitments, MGO blockchain ensures that records and agreements remain unaltered over time. Shared prosperity and philanthropy. MGO encourages the use of cryptocurrency for charitable giving and social impact, promoting the idea of shared prosperity as a reflection of divine abundance. Security and sanctuary. The cryptographic security of blockchain is paralleled with the spiritual concept of divine protection, offering participants a sense of safety and trust in both the digital and spiritual realms. Knowledge and empowerment. By providing an open, accessible ledger, MGO supports democratization of knowledge. Community governance. MGO's community-driven approach, potentially through decentralized autonomous organizations (DAOs), allows collective decision-making reflecting the spiritual value of shared leadership and mutual responsibility. Summary. MoneyGod1 blends spirituality with blockchain by using the technology's core features: decentralization, transparency, immutability, and security as digital expressions of spiritual values such as unity, trust, covenant, stewardship, and sanctuary. Through MGO also related. Let's see. How MoneyGod1 incorporates biblical principles into blockchain use. MoneyGod1 MGO integrates biblical principles into the blockchain ecosystem by aligning its technology and community practices with core values found in Scripture. This approach in several areas. Stewardship and responsible resource management. MGO encourages users to see their digital assets as resources entrusted to them by God. Integrity and transparency. The immutable, transparent nature of blockchain technology is leveraged to promote honesty and accountability, reflecting the biblical emphasis on integrity. Proverbs 13:11, Matthew 6:24. Every transaction is recorded on a public ledger. Generosity and compassion. MGO's mission of global volunteerism and service is rooted in the biblical principle of generosity, using wealth to help those in need. Acts 20:35, 2 Corinthians 9:7. The project encourages community and mutual uplift. The centralized community-driven governance model of MGO mirrors the biblical call to build up and serve one another. Romans 12:4-8, Galatians 6:2. 5. Ethical discernment and avoidance of greed. MGO encourages participants to approach investments and wealth accumulation with discernment, cautioning against the pitfalls of greed and the get-rich-quick mentality. 1 Timothy 6. Economic justice and conclusion. By leveraging blockchain to provide access to financial tools for the understand, MGO has the biblical mandate to support the marginalized and promote justice. Isaiah 1:17, James 1:27. Blockchain's ability is ethical use and lawfulness. MGO encourages compliance with legal and ethical standards, including tax obligations, reflecting the biblical instruction to render unto Caesar and Obi. By applying these principles, we create a more responsible approach towards crypto investments. It may seem confusing at times, but embracing biblical principles, stewardship, MGO blockchain application, responsible management and use of digital assets, biblical integrity, transparent immutable transactions and honest practices, generosity, facilitating charitable charitable foundations, community, decentralized collective governance and mutual support, ethical discernment, cautions, don't work with greed, economic justice, financial inclusion for the underserved, lawfulness. Related, how does Money God 1 apply biblical principles? So we just see how stewardship and blockchain practices. MGO encourages users to treat cryptocurrency as a resource entrusted to them by God. Wise management is promoted by advocating for prudent investments, discouraging excessive speculation, and prioritizing sustainable long-term value over quick profits. Therefore, Proverbs 13:11's warning against get-rich-quick scams and the call to gather wealth little by little, generosity and social impact. MGO's mission of global volunteerism and service is a direct application of biblical stewardship, which calls for using resources to help others and support God's work. 2 Corinthians 9:7. The project facilitates charitable giving by enabling direct, transparent donations through blockchain, allowing users to support humanitarian causes efficiently and with accountability. Transparency and accountability. The use of blockchain's immutable ledger ensures that all transactions are transparent and trustable, promoting honesty and accountability. Key aspects of biblical stewardship. Luke 16:10. This transparency helps prevent corruption and misuse of funds, aligning with the biblical call to integrity and faithfulness. Ethical and lawful conduct. MGO encourages compliance with legal and ethical standards, including tax obligations reflecting the biblical principles. The project cautions against using cryptocurrency for illicit purposes or tax evasion, phrasing that financial inclusion and justice. By leveraging blockchain to provide access to financial tools for the understand, MGO aligns with the biblical mandate to support the marginalized justice. Blockchain ability to reach the unbanked and facilitate low-cost transactions supports Christian value and herd attitude toward wealth. MGO's approach to stewardship is rooted in the biblical warning that money should not become an idol, Matthew 6:24 and 1 Timothy 6:10. The project encourages participants to use wealth as a means and by God. Stewardship principle, responsible management, MGO blockchain application, prudent investment, transparency, immutable ledger for honesty and accountability, ethical conduct, compliance with laws and ethical standards. Money God 1 thus applies biblical stewardship by ensuring that blockchain technology is used to honor God, serve others, and manage resources for wisdom. Related, how MGO ensures its blockchain principles align with biblical stewardship principles. MoneyGod 1 aligns its blockchain practices with biblical stewardship principles by internationally embedding scriptural values into its operational, technological, and community frameworks. Recognition of God's ownership and human stewardship. MGO's philosophy is rooted in the biblical teaching that all resources ultimately belong to God and humans are stewards, not owners. Psalm 24:1. The project encourages its community by transparency and accountability. By leveraging blockchain's immutable ledger, MGO ensures that all transactions are transparent and traceable, fostering accountability and trust within the community. This approach directly reflects the biblical call for integrity and faithfulness in stewardship of 1 Corinthians 4:2. Generosity and charitable giving. MGO facilitates direct, low-cost, and transparent charitable giving using blockchain, enabling users to support humanitarian and social causes efficiently. Prudence and discernment. The project advocates for careful, informed, and prudent use of digital assets, discouraging speculative or reckless behavior. This aligns with biblical wisdom that calls for thoughtful 5. Service and sacrifice. MGO's mission of global volunteering community service reflects the biblical model of stewardship as humble service and sacrifice for others, following, for example, of Jesus, John 13:1-17. Environmental and social responsibility. While not unique to MGO, the broader Christian perspective on blockchain stewardship includes considering environmental impact and striving for sustainability. MGO can further align with biblical stewardship by supporting eco-friendly blockchain practices and prioritizing financial inclusion for the marginalized freedom. Biblical freedom codes ownership. MGO blockchain practice community sees assets as entrusted by God. Accountability and integrity. And MGO transparent immutable blockchain records. Biblical generosity. MGO facilitates direct, transparent charitable giving. Bible prudence and discernment. Service and sacrifice. MGO promotes volunteerism and service to others. Bible environmental social justice. MGO supports inclusion and considers sustainability. By integrating these principles, MGO is one very good cryptocurrency. How MGO balances transparency with privacy to reflect biblical values. MoneyGod 1 MGO seeks to embody biblical stewardship by balancing transparency and privacy in its blockchain practices, driven on scriptural principles that value should be gathered and should be personal dignity. Transparency for accountability and trust. MGO leverages blockchain's immutable public ledger to ensure that transactions and case decisions are open and verifiable. This transparency reflects biblical teachings that emphasize honesty, accountability, and the avoidance or hidden wrongdoing. Proverbs 11:13. Privacy for dignity and confidentiality. At the same time, MGO recognizes the biblical importance of privacy, especially regarding personal matters, sensitive information, and individual dignity. Scripture highlights the value of private prayer, Matthew 6:6, the need for confidentiality in relationships, Proverbs 11:13, and the protection of individuals' person's boundaries. MGO applies that it is ethical discernment in practice. The Bible acknowledges that privacy and transparency can sometimes be in tension, requiring wisdom and discernment to navigate. For example, transparency is necessary when addressing wrongdoing or protection for the community. But privacy is vital for confession, counseling, and spiritual growth. MGO aims to reflect this balance by making financial flows and government decisions open and auditable, protecting user identifiers and handling sensitive data with discretion and ethical care. Summary: MGO approach mirrors biblical wisdom. Transparency is used to foster trust, accountability, and ethical stewardship, while privacy is prevented to honor individual dignity and create a safe environment for personal and spiritual development. This balance is maintained through technological design, public ledgers, and pseudonymity, ethical guidance, and community standards. Related, how MGO applies biblical teachings to protect individual privacy in practice. MoneyGod 1 MGO integrates biblical teachings on privacy into these blockchain practices by prioritizing human dignity, ethical stewardship, and responsible data management. Here's how this principle reflected in MGO approach. Upholding human dignity, Imago Dei. MGO recognizes that every individual is created by the image of God, Imago Dei, deserving respect and protection of their personal information. This foundation is second, limiting public exposure and respecting boundaries. Following biblical examples such as Jesus' discretion in private moments, rising Jairus' daughter in private and instructing secrecy, MGO designs its systems so that while transactional data may be transparent for accountability, personal identities, and third, ethical stewardship of data. MGO treats user data as a resource entrusted by God to be managed with care and integrity. This includes implementing robust security measures to prevent unauthorized access and misuse, and ensuring for justice and protection for vulnerable. Reflecting biblical calls to defend the vulnerable, Psalms 82:3, MGO takes extra precautions to protect users who may be at greater risk of harm from data breach and misuse. MGO applies the biblical principle of discretion, not exposing personal matters unnecessarily. Proverbs 11:13, Matthew 6:6. This seen in the use of pseudonymous blockchain addresses rather than public disclosure of personal identities. Restriction access to sensitive information to only those with a legitimate need. Love for neighbor and ethical technology use. MGO's privacy practices are guided by Jesus' command to love one neighbor, Matthew 22:39, meaning that all technological decisions are made with the well-being of users in mind. This includes monetized data. Biblical principles, human dignity, MAO Day, MGO practice example, respect for personal data and identity. Biblical discretion and boundaries, MGOs, confidential handling of sensitive information. Biblical principles, stewardship, MGO, secure ethical data management and transparency. Biblical justice for vulnerable, MGOs, extra protection and education for at-risk users. Love your neighbor, Bible, MGO, same. How does MGO interpret Jesus' example of privacy to guide its practices? Many God One MGO draws on Jesus' example of privacy as recorded in the Gospels to shape its approach to privacy within blockchain operations and community life. Private prayer and spiritual intimacy. Jesus taught that authentic spiritual life often happens away from public view. In Matthew 6:6 he instructs, when you pray, go into your room, close the door and pray to your Father, who is unseen. This underscores the value of seeking intimacy with God rather than public recognition and technology. Second, discretion of ministry and personal matters. Jesus frequently withdraws from crowds for solitude and prayer, Mark 1:35, modeling the need for personal boundaries and private space. He also handled sensitive situations like healing, and these actions demonstrate discretion and respect for individual dignity, showing that not all information or action should be public, but confidential is protection of the vulnerable. Jesus' teachings and actions reflect the biblical principles of safeguarding the vulnerable and maintaining confidentiality. For example, he often told those he healed not to publicize a miracle, protecting them from unwanted attentions and himself from premature applications in MGO blockchain practice. MGO applies these lessons by ensuring that while blockchain offers transparency for accountability, personal identities should be protected, secured. Encouraging community members to share only what is necessary for trust and cooperation, avoiding oversharing or unnecessary exposure of personal matters. Upholding confidentiality and community support, counseling and charitable giving, reflecting Jesus' call to give in secret, Matthew 6:4. Creating systems and policies that allow for both open accountability and the protection of individual privacy. Following Jesus' model. Summary: MGO interprets Jesus' example of privacy as a call to balance transparency with discretion, protect personal dignity, and foster environments where spiritual growth and community trust can flourish without unnecessary exposure. This approach directly informs its privacy policies. How does MGO incorporate Jesus' teachings on private prayer into its privacy policies? Many God One draws directly from Jesus' teaching on private prayer, particularly as expressed in Matthew 6:6, to inform the shape its privacy policies. Jesus instructed his followers to pray in secret, emphasizing sincerity, humility, and first, prioritizing user confidentiality. MGO's privacy policies are designed to ensure that users' personal identities and sensitive information remain protected, mirroring the biblical call to seek God in secret, rather than for public approval. This means that while blockchain transactions are transparent, everything should be confidential. Second, fostering a safe space for authentic engagement. Just as private prayer creates an environment for honest and open communication with God, MGO's privacy standards aim to create a digital platform, limiting data collection and exposure. Reflecting Jesus' teaching to avoid public displays for the sake of recognition, MGO collects only the minimum necessary data and avoids unnecessary sharing to exposure of user information. Emphasizing the value of inner integrity, MGO's policies encourage users to act from a place of inner conviction and integrity, not external pressure or desire for recognition, paralleling Jesus' emphasis on the hero's posture, enabling private acts of generosity and service. In line with Jesus' instruction to give and serve in secret, MGO supports features that allow users to contribute to charitable causes or community-driven communities. Jesus' teaching on private prayer. Pray in secret, Matthew 6:6. MGOs, confidential user data. Sincerely over public relay, authentic engagement, minimal data exposure, focus on heart, not recognition, user actions not linked to public identity, private acts of faith and giving, anonymous or private charitable features. By structuring its privacy policy around these principles, MGO ensures that its digital environment reflects all the biblical and Jesus standards. How does MGO interpret Jesus' teaching on private prayer to shape its privacy policies? Many God interprets Jesus' teaching private prayer, most notable from Matthew 6:6, as a foundational guide for its privacy policies, emphasizing sincerity, humility, and the protection of personal spiritual experience over public recognition. Jesus taught, "But when you pray, go into the inner room, shut your door, and pray to your Father who is unseen, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." Matthew 6:6. This instruction highlights that the true value of prayer lies not in public but in private. Prioritizing user confidentiality, MGO ensures that personal identities and sensitive information are protected, mirroring the biblical call to seek God in secret rather than for public approval. Blockchain transactions focusing on motivation and heart posture. Just as Jesus condemned to praying for the sake of being seen, MGO's policies are designed to prevent the misuse of public data for self-promotion or status, instead encouraging sincere participation and engagement. Creating a safe environment for authentic engagement, MGO's privacy centers foster a digital space where users can interact and contribute without fear of exposure or judgment, supporting honest and open participation, paralleling the spiritual benefits of private prayer. By grounding its privacy policies in Jesus' teaching in private prayer, MGO seeks to cultivate an environment of integrity, humility, and authentic. Related. Many God interprets Jesus' teaching in private prayer. This instruction was a direct challenge to the public displays of piety common of his time, shifting the focus from outward appearances to the sincerity and motivation of the heart. MGO applies this by prioritizing confidentiality. MGO's privacy policy is structured to protect users' rights and confidentiality, focusing on motivation. Jesus warned against praying to be seen by others. MGO discourages on practices that would allow for self-promotion. Providing a safe space for authentic engagement, MGO policies create all these guidelines. Biblical values of sincerity and humility shaping MGO's approach to data privacy. Many God MGO works in this condition. So, humility, service, and respect for others. In practice, sincerity, as taught by the Bible, calls for actions that are genuine and free from hypocrisy. For MGO, this means ensuring the data. Humility, modeled by Jesus and faced as a core Christian model. For MGO, the same. Compassion. Summary table. Biblical values in MGO's data privacy. Transparency and discretion. Biblical sincerity, MGO, so known as transparent privacy policies. Bible service, MGO, prioritized and low-cost transactions. You can incorporate biblical values into your approach by digital privacy by grounding your actions in core scriptural principles that emphasize respect, dignity, justice, and love for others. Here's how to do this in practice. First, respect for individual dignity. The Bible teaches that every person is made in the image of God, Genesis 1:27, which means that you are created by God too. Second, sincerity and confidentiality. Jesus' teaching on private prayer, Matthew 6:6, highlights the importance of keeping certain aspects of life in secret. 3. Justice and protection for the vulnerable. Scripture calls for defending the weak and upholding the cause of the people. 4. Love your neighbor. Jesus commands us to love our neighbors as ourselves, Matthew. 5. Ethical stewardship. Treat the data you handle as a resource entrusted to you by God. Be transparent about how you use the technology and don't share additional details. 6. Discernment and wisdom. Not all situations are clear-cut. Use your brain, use your heart.